During World War II, Germany created one of the most massive weapons ever used in the history of warfare, a gigantic cannon unlike anything the world had seen before. Yes, it was so enormous that transporting it from one place to another required 5 separate trains. And that's not all. Operating this weapon demanded more than 4,000 people. Just imagine, firing a single shot required massive preparation and months of planning. When it roared, the entire area would tremble as if an earthquake had struck. This terrifying weapon was called the Schwerer Gustav. It was built by the German industrial giant Krupp. Their goal was simple: to create a weapon capable of destroying the strongest enemy fortifications from a great distance, concrete bunkers, fortresses, and even deeply buried defensive structures. At the time, defenses like France's Maginot Line and Soviet fortifications were so strong that conventional artillery could barely damage them. This monstrous cannon was designed to accomplish what seemed impossible. Now imagine standing in front of a cannon that is about 47 meters long, roughly the length of 8 tanks lined up one after another. Its barrel alone measured 32 meters. The muzzle was so wide that a person could easily fit inside it. This wasn't just large, it was the size of an entire building. Standing beside it, a person would feel like an ant next to a giant. The cannon weighed approximately 1,350 tons. It was so heavy that it couldn't simply be placed on regular ground. Instead, 4 parallel rail tracks had to be specially constructed. 2 tracks supported the cannon itself, while the other 2 were used by massive cranes that assembled its exhaust. The entire setup was a remarkable feat of engineering, not just a weapon, but a demonstration of how far technology could be pushed. Transporting it was another massive operation. The cannon had to be dismantled into Hawali 25 large exhaust, which were then carried on multiple trains. Once they reached the destination, all the parts were reassembled, a process that took about 6 weeks. Imagine a weapon that required a month and a half just to become operational. In the middle of a war, that time was incredibly significant. Thousands of people were involved in the process, some laying tracks, others assembling components, and others preparing ammunition. The whole Elakata looked like a small city, all for the purpose of firing a single weapon. This shows just how extraordinary and complex it truly was. It wasn't just a weapon, it was an entire system. Now, let's talk about its most terrifying feature: its shells. One type of high-explosive shell was about 8 meters long and weighed around 4,800 kilograms. When fired, it could travel nearly 40 kilometers before striking its target. On impact, it could create a crater about 12 meters deep, large enough to swallow an entire building. Another type was an armor-piercing shell, even heavier, at around 7,100 kilograms. This shell was designed to penetrate deep into the ground or concrete before exploding internally, destroying structures from within. Tests showed it could pierce up to 10 meters of solid concrete, meaning even the strongest bunkers on Earth were not safe from it. This cannon was capable of firing shells to incredible distances, hitting targets lugbug 40 to 45 kilometers away. That meant it could strike from one city to another, which was an astonishing technological achievement for its time. However, behind this immense power lay a major limitation, one that ultimately changed the future of the Schwerer Gustav. Firing a single shell was far from simple. Each shot was a separate operation. First, the barrel had to be lowered. Then, the massive shell had to be carefully loaded, followed by the propellant. The entire process was slow, complex, and required extreme precision. As a result, it took a significant amount of time, making it difficult to keep up with the fast pace of modern warfare. When the cannon fired, the sound was so powerful that it could be heard from great distances. Nearby buildings would crack, and the earth would shake violently. People often couldn't tell whether it was an explosion or an earthquake. It wasn't just a sound, it was something you could physically feel. This terrifying weapon was used during the Siege of Sevastopol, where it was deployed against strong Soviet defenses. In one instance, a shell struck an underground ammunition depot. The resulting explosion caused the entire area to collapse, destroying everything nearby. At that moment, the cannon demonstrated its true destructive power. But this raises an important question. If it was so powerful, why didn't Germany win the World War II? The reality is that despite its power, the cannon had even greater limitations. It operated very slowly. After firing one shot, it could take up to 45 minutes to prepare for the next. In the middle of a war, that was a huge disadvantage. Moreover, each shot caused the railway tracks beneath it to shift due to the immense recoil. The earth structures underneath would also be affected, requiring repairs before it could fire again. This wasted valuable time and often brought the entire system to a halt. Another major issue was visibility. Hiding such a massive weapon was nearly impossible. Enemy forces could easily detect its position, making it highly vulnerable to counterattacks. In the end, while it was an extraordinary feat of engineering, it proved to be impractical in real war conditions. After the war ended, the cannon was dismantled and its parts were scattered. Today, it no longer exists in its complete form. Yet one question still remains. If humans can create such monstrous machines for war, what else might they build in the future? And will such technology remain limited to warfare, or could it one day become one of the greatest threats to humanity itself?